right, well, welcome to the final lab prep document and videos series. This is going to be just like the midterm lab prep in that you've got this video here where I'm going to explain and show exactly what you need to do in lab. Just like the midterm, this is exactly the same file that you end up taking for your final. And so I'm going to go through this very slowly in this walkthrough and show exactly how all of this stuff is done. There will also be a faster version of this video for you to go through and just look at the answers. Let's take a look at this file. You can see we have the lookup and if page. We have a sheet called import, a sheet called tables that just has a couple lookup tables, and then the pivot sheet where we will make a pivot table and answer some questions. So here we go. Instruction number 1 tells us on the lookup and if sheet in column D to use a VLOOKUP function to return the rent for each property. The rent is determined by the number of rooms in the rental price cost table. So I need to look that up down here, writing a VLOOKUP here. This is a simple VLOOKUP equals VL tab to bring up the VLOOKUP. I'm going to look up the number of rooms, 1, comma. In the table array in the rental price cost, I start right here in A14. I do not include the headers. I select this entire table. I lock the table down, F4, comma. What column do I want the information back from? Well, I'm interested in the rent, and the rent is in the 1, 2, the second column in this table. Second column, is this an exact or a range lookup? I am looking up the number 1 exactly down here. I'm not interested in where this falls in a range, so this is going to be false. Control Enter. 350 is what I was expecting to see. One room, 350 rent. And I will copy that down. Double check up here to see blue, red. Escape to get out of that. Double check here to see blue and red. I'm happy that's working. Instruction number 2 says in column E for me to look up the cost of maintenance for each property. The cost of maintenance is determined by the number of rooms in the rental price cost table. So again, cost of maintenance is found right here in the 4th column of this table. It's the exact same lookup, equals VL tab to get that started. Look up the number of rooms, comma. In the same lookup table we just used there, F4 to lock that down, comma. What column is it in? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4th column, comma. Is this a true or a false? This is an exact match. Control Enter, copy it down. Looks like what I was after. Blue and red, escape. Blue and red, very good. Number 3 says, in column F, use a VLOOKUP function to return the tax for each property. The tax is determined by the rent amount in the tax table. So we see tax table down here. We have rent amount right here. So I'm going to use a VLOOKUP function here, looking up this rent in this tax table. Equals VLOOKUP. Lookup amount is the rent right here, comma. I'm going to look that up in this tax table down here. F4 to lock that down, comma. The tax is in the 1, 2 second column. Now, is this a true or a false? Is this an approximate or an exact match? Where does 350 occur down here? 300, 650, 100. It does not occur down here, right? It does not occur down here at all. I'm not interested in lining up 350 exactly. I want to know what the tax amount is on a property that's 350. That is more than 300 but less than 650, so I expect to get 3% back. So this is an approximate match. Double click there, true, end that, control enter. That's exactly what I get back, 3% what I was expecting to see. I copy that down. and it's working here, blue, red, escape, come down to this next one, and I'm going to go here and say blue, red, 1200, look down here, above 1000, 11%, exactly what I'm expecting you to say, 11%. All right, so this is working perfectly. Number 4 says, in column G, use an if function to determine the amount of profit according to this logic. If the property is occupied, that means we have the word yes in column C, then the profit is rent, column D, minus cost of maintenance in column E. If the property does not meet those conditions, then profit is 0. So we're going to say, hey, if this place is rented, if this word is yes, then we can go rent minus cost of maintenance. If not, we won't be getting any rent, so we won't be getting any profit. So here we go. Equals, if, tab to start that. What is my logical test? Well, is this right here equal to the text yes, text has quotation marks, yes, comma, if that's true, then I want to take the rent minus the cost of maintenance, comma, if it's not, I just want the number 0, and I'm going to go ahead and hard code the number 0 because 0 is never going to change. Control Enter, 225, copy that down, and I'm happy. Yes, numerical value, no, 0. Number 5 says, in column H, use an if-and function to determine the amount of tax paid according to this logic. If the property has more than 2 rooms, so that would be column B is greater than 2, and is occupied, yes, in column C, then take the profit, column G, times the tax, column F. If the property does not meet these conditions, the tax paid is 0. So this is going to be an if-and function, and we'll want to recall that with the and function, everything in there has to be true in order for it to be true. So the two things that we had here is if the property has more than 2 rooms. So that means this one would qualify, this one would qualify, and this one would qualify. 4, 3, and 3, that's more than 2. So in addition to that, we are also looking for places that are occupied. So 4, 3, and 3, and are they occupied? Yes, yes, and yes. So all of these will meet our and criteria. And we can write that off to the side like this and say, okay, so is this number here greater than 2? Control Enter, that's false. Also, we could say, is this equal to the text? Yes. And we have to put that in quotation marks. Control Enter, false and true. Copy these down. Now, the only place that we would expect to see an and function come back true are instances where we see both of them being true. It takes both of them being true for that to work, and so we'll see that in the second record, the third record, and the last record. All right, so now let's put this together and figure out the tax paid. We're going to say equals if, start that tab. Now, this is going to be an and function for the logical test. And, open the parentheses there. So we need one logical test and another logical test, the same ones we had over here. So, is this number right here greater than the number 2? Comma, to go on to the next logical test. Is this word right here equal to the text yes? I'm going to close that parenthesis because that is the logical test right there. We know this is going to evaluate to false because we see that one of them is false over here. Comma to get back into the if function. And now we're going to say, hey, if this is true, this is what I want you to do. It says if it is true, then take profit times tax. So we'll come over here and we'll say if it is true, profit times tax. Comma, if it's not, give me back the value 0. Control Enter and copy this down. And it looks like this is working, right? If I see a false here, I expect to see 0. If I see true, true, I expect to see a monetary value. True, true, monetary value, true, true. Looks good. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and delete this helper cell so we can do this again for the next one. And here we go. It says in column I, use an if-or function. So now remember with our or function, we're going to have logical statements just like we did in the last one. But now these logical tests, we only need one of those to come back as true for the whole thing to be true. So we're going to follow this logic here. If the property has 1 room, okay, so if this is equal to 1 over here, or is not occupied, so is equal to no in this column, then we're going to go ahead and figure out the discount according to this logic. It'll be cost of maintenance times tax, right? And if the property doesn't meet those conditions, then it's 0. So we're going to come over here and we're going to write an if or equals if tab or tab, and here we go. We're going to write some logical statements in here. Well, here, I'm going to go ahead and write them off to the side so we can see this working again. I'm going to say, number 1, are you equal to the number 0? Control Enter. It's true. Also, are you right here equal to the word, we're after the word no. No. False. Copy this down. And with an OR function, we're going to expect to get this back anywhere there's a true. So that means here, and here, and here. Right? So we'll expect to see the numbers coming back in those spots. So I'm going to come over here and now write this out. Equals if tab or tab, the first logical test, are you equal to the number 1, comma, are you equal to the word no? I'm done with my logical tests and that parenthesis, comma, to get back into the if function. If it is true, then I want to figure out the discount. And the discount is figured out by doing like this, cost of maintenance times tax. So we'll go cost of maintenance times tax. If it's not, 0. Close the parenthesis, Control Enter, copy this down. And exactly again, anywhere that I see a true, I'm seeing a numeric value. Everything else is 0. This is working well. So I'm going to delete these helper cells and come in and do the last thing on this page. In column J, we're going to use a nested if function, an if within an if function, to return the tax category according to this logic. So if the tax paid over here in column, or if the tax paid over here in column H, if it's less than $30, we're going to return the word low over here, right? If it's greater than 100, we're going to return the word high. And if it's somewhere in between, then we're going to put medium. All right? And so that has 3 outcomes. And so that means we're going to need 2 if statements. We always need 1 less if statement than we have outcomes. So here we go. Equals if tab to get that started. And the first test I'm going to do is just say, hey, are you, this number right here, are you less than 30? Because if you are, I want to get back the text low. Now, comma, normally, that should be a quotation mark right there, comma, normally this would just be our other outcome, but we've got 2 more outcomes left. So we need to use a whole nother if function right there. If right there, okay, another logical test. I'm going to say, hey, if you're greater than 100, then I want back the text high, comma. Now, here's the third outcome. We've got low, high. By default, that should have been a quotation mark. I'm not too sure why I'm having a problem getting that done. Quotation mark right there. All right, so now the only outcome left would be quotation mark medium. For anything that didn't meet those criteria, quotation mark to end that, parenthesis to end it. You notice that's a red parenthesis. I need to add parentheses till I have a black one. Control Enter and copy this down. And I'm seeing what I would expect to see. Less than 30 low, greater than 100 high, medium, something in between, greater than 30 but less than 100, and again, same thing here. Okay, this is working perfectly, and that is everything that I need to do on the lookup sheet. Instruction number 8 tells me to move over to the import sheet. Now, on the import sheet, I'm supposed to add a column to the left of the product column. All right, so let's take a look here. That's actually the P code column. All right, that's called the P code column. I'm going to right click and insert to put one. Remember, anytime we insert a column, it moves toward the origin over here. So if I do it here, it'll put a column in there. If I tried to put a row in right here, it would put one in above. So I'm going to go to B and say insert, and that'll put a column into the left of the P code column. Now, it says, label the new column region. All right, I'm going to call this region. Enter. The leftmost character of the RMA code, so this right here, the leftmost character, that E in that RMA code, indicates the region. Use a parsing function to extract the letter. Use the extracted letter in a VLOOKUP to return the region from the regions table. Okay, so let me hop over and take a look at these tables over here and look at my regions table here. Oh, okay, so E stands for East, M for Midwest, S for South, W for West, no problem. Okay, so what I'm going to do is what I want to do here is to write a VLOOKUP, right? So there's two things that I'm doing here. I'm going to get the region code, this E, from the leftmost character of the RMA, the W from this one, the S from this one, right? So let's do that. Let's go equals left, our left function, our parsing function. Come over and click this and tell it, hey, I want the first leftmost character. Boom, there we go. I've got an E. And if I copy these down, perfect, right? Now, what I'm saying is, hey, go do a VLOOKUP, look up this letter right here, look it up in the regions table right there, give me back the second column, and make it an exact match. Right? And I get back East, and that's working perfectly. Now, let's combine these things. All right, let's combine these things. So right over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, go look something up. What am I going to look up? Well, I'm going to look up the leftmost character of the RMA. So I'm going to go ahead and nest the left function right in here and say this text string right here, the first character of it, we know that that evaluates to E because we did it right over here, comma, where am I going to look that up in? Well, it's the regions table, comma, what column do I want the information back from? The second column. And is that an exact match? It is. False. And parenthesis, Control Enter, and copy that down. Okay, working beautifully. Get rid of my helper cells over here. Delete. Next, it tells me to add a column to the left of the serial number. All right, add a column to the left of the serial number. Insert. And I want to label this product line. All right, so product line. Enter. And use the two-letter code in the P code column in a VLOOKUP to return the product line from the products table. Okay, so if I come over and look at this, this table is called products, and we can see we've got a two-letter code to get that back. So this is going to be a much easier VLOOKUP for us to write because we got the product code right there. It's just going to be a VLOOKUP, and we're going to look up the product code right there. We're going to look it up in the products table. Okay? Products table right there, second column, and an exact match. That's a printer. Okay? I'm going to copy that down. Now it tells me to copy the results as values only and then delete the unnecessary P code column. Okay, because if we take a look at this, right? If we take a look at this, we've now got a product line that came from the product code. We don't need the product code anymore. But look what happens if I delete these. If I delete the P code here, my VLOOKUP doesn't work anymore. I'm going to undo that, undo, bring it back. So this is a formula that's dependent upon that. I want to get rid of that. So that means that I need to convert these to values only. There's two ways for me to do this. I can just go ahead and I can say copy, and then I can come back right over the top of them and go paste special, 1, 2, 3, values only. That did it. If I hop into there now, you see all we have is the text, no functions. Right? The faster way, I'm going to go back, undo, undo, up, forward, right there to where I have my function again, escape. What I can do is I can highlight this. I can come over until I have my move cursor right at the outside edge, right click, move it, bring it back, copy here as values only. That's the fast way to do that. We do this so much when we clean up data. We have a shortcut built right in there. Click on that. Now the formula is not dependent on anything, I can come here and I can delete the entire column C, delete, and there we go. And we got rid of the unnecessary stuff. So now instruction number 10 says in the column labeled start date right here in that column, okay? In the column labeled start date, the date is stored as text and has a 2-letter code attached on the left, okay? So use text to columns to leave only the date formatted as month, day, year. All right, so look at this. We have a date in here. And if we look at this, we've got the product code that's attached to it. It's some kind of smart numbering system, but it's actually not helping us out at all. What I want to do is I want to get in here, just like this, and I want to separate this, and then I want to get rid of these right there, and then bring that in as a date, right? And so that right there is going to be an easy thing to do with text to columns, right? So I'm going to go ahead and highlight my column, go up to my data tab, say text to columns, and what do I have here? Okay, there's no delimiter for me to work with, but it is a consistent thing. I have 2 letters followed by the date string, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this is not delimited, this is fixed width. Next. Now I need to karate chop right down through here, right after the PO, boom, like that. That's where I want it to be separated. Next. All right, so this PO right there, that column with the 2 letters in it, that is unnecessary. I want to dump that. So I'm going to tell it right here, do not import that column. I'm going to come over to this one here, my date column that I do want. I do want to import that. Do I want it in the general number format? No, I want this to be a date. So I'm going to come down here and say, hey, bring that as a date format. And it defaults to MDY. If this wasn't MDY, I would select MDY from down here. Month, day, year, exactly what I want. Destination, F2, leave it right where it is. I'm going to replace everything right where they are and click finish. And look at that. Beautiful. Okay, that is now an Excel date. All right. So now instruction number 11 tells us to do the same thing over in the ship date. All right, so let me go ahead and widen this out so I can see what's going on. The ship date has the same kind of problem going on, but look at this. It's not just 2 letters in this smart numbering system. It's actually 2 or 1 or 3 letters followed by a hyphen, and then we have our date stored as text. So we need to do the same thing, but this will have a delimiter. I'm going to come down and select this, come up to data, text to columns, and say, hey, this is delimited. Next. What is the delimiter? Okay, we can see if I had tab, this would be it. That's not helping at all. I'm going to deselect tab and come down here and say, you know what? I know what it is. It's a hyphen. I'm going to put the hyphen in there and look at that. That's working perfectly. All right, now it's got the letters separated from our date. That's good. Next. All right, so what do I want to do with this, with the 3 or 2 letter word or letter combination? Not interested. Do not import. This one over here, I want to bring this in as a date. It's not general. I want a date, month, day, year. Perfect. Finish. And there we go. It's done beautifully. All right. So now we're told in instruction number 12 to add a column to the far right of the data in column J right out here. Okay. So I'm going to put a title up here called turnaround. All right, and we're going to figure out the turnaround time in here. So we've got a start date and a ship date. So we're going to use the net work days formula because we don't want to include weekends or holidays. Net work days. Take this start date here and this end date here, and that's all we need there. Control Enter, and I'm going to copy this down to get my net work days being calculated, and that's all we need to do on this sheet. So the next instruction, instruction 13, tells me to make a pivot table out of this proper data set, that we just cleaned up. And so this proper data set is going to work just fine for pivot table. I'm going to click anywhere inside of this and say insert pivot table. I'm told to take this and put it on an existing sheet. I'm going to put it on the pivot table worksheet. So right here I'm going to say existing worksheet and tell it the location is pivot table, and I'm going to go up to cell A1 and put it right there. Okay, and there's my canvas. And so what I'm going to do here, instruction number 14 tells me how to do this. I'm going to be asked questions in instruction 15 through 21. I'm going to be asked questions. I'm going to answer that using my pivot table here, and I'm going to copy and paste the numerical values, the answer, over into these green cells right here, right, into these green cells. All right, so here we go. Instruction number 15 just asked me for the sum of all the costs, right? So I'm just going to grab my cost field, and I'm going to drag this down to values. And so all I need to do is just go ahead and take this here. I'm going to do Control C to copy, and I'm going to paste it right in there for question 15. Paste. Okay. I'm going to come back to my pivot table and drag that one off of there and answer the next question. Number 16, what is the average turnaround time for all the products? Right. So I'm going to bring turnaround time down to values. That's the sum of the turnaround time. I'm interested in values, so I'm going to come down, or average, so I'm going to come down and say value field settings, and I'm going to turn this into an average. Okay, and there we go. And I'm asked to make that in 2 decimal places, so I will right click, go down to number format, bring my dialog box over here, number formatting, 2 decimal places. Okay, there we go, 4.68. I'm going to go ahead and take that, copy it, and paste it over here next to question 16. Question 17, hop back into my pivot table. I'll drag that turnaround time off of there. Question 17 says, what is the sum of the cost of all items that are failure code and no problem found? So I'm going to take failure code down here. Right? I'm interested in no problem found. I'm going to, let's see here, what was that one? It's going to, the sum of the cost, right? So I'll bring the cost down there. So the sum of the cost for no problem found is that one right there. But I could make this a little bit easier by coming down here and saying, just show me no problem found. Okay. And there we go. It's 11,662. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that and paste it in there. Come back over into my pivot table. I'm going to drag this one off of there, drag this one off of there. I've applied a filter right there, so I better get rid of that. Come up and go data, clear that filter. And we'll start again on question 18. What is the sum of all of the cost for failure code optical problem with a ship date in the month of July? Okay, so there's a couple things going on here. All right, so we could just go ahead. I can set up a filter for just optical problem. All right, so let's go ahead and let's sum the cost, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my my failure code filter. And set that to just optical problem. Okay. And then I want to look at just a ship date in the month of July. So I'll take a ship date down here to rows, and there we go, July 1544. All right. So that's my answer, July 1544. Go ahead and take that, copy it, and paste it over here into question 18. Question 19. What was the average turnaround time for all printers in the East? All right, back into my pivot table, clear my filter out, get these off of here, get back to a blank slate, and let me answer my question. Question 19, what was the average turnaround time for printers in the East? So product line to rows, turnaround time to values. I'm going to go region to filter, filter just east, okay. And I'm interested in average turnaround time, that's sum of turnaround time. So average turnaround time, okay. The average turnaround time for a printer in the East, 2 decimal places, printer in the East, that's 3.75. Copy, paste that in here. Question 20, what was the sum of the cost for computer in the South? Okay, so come back in here, clear any filters that I have going on, drag these off, and what was the sum of the cost for computer in the South? So cost to values, product line to rows, and we'll go ahead and do region to filter, say just South, okay. And I'm interested in computer in the South right there. Copy that, paste that into question 20. And question 21, what was the sum of cost for all records with the start date in the first quarter of the year? Okay, so let me go ahead and bring this up again, clear any filters I have going on, drag these off, and okay, so the sum of cost, values, sum of cost for all records with the start date in the first quarter of the year. So start date to rows, and this gives it to me monthly, January, February, March. So if I added these up, I'd get the answer, but I don't want to do that. Let's take this and let's turn this into quarters. So I'll just right click there, come down to group, And one of my options is quarters, so I'll take days and months off, go just to quarters, okay. And there we have it, Q1 right there, sewing cost for Q1. Copy that, paste that in there, and now you are good and truly done.